I feel like we do tend to always try to be, especially if we're really nice people, we try to be the nice person. We try to not offend anybody. We try to not make them feel bad, so we get into these relationships, and sometimes we get into a relationship because they adore us. We haven't even taken the time to really figure out who they are and if we really respect and admire them. And if people in their life around them are healthy people that respect and admire them. We just get really fed by them putting us on a pedestal, which is exactly what narcissists and manipulators do. They put you on a pedestal, make you feel like you're the most beautiful and amazing person, often way too quickly when they really don't know you yet. They love bomb, and you fall in love with how much they love you. You don't necessarily fall in love with them, right? Because you don't even know who they are yet. They make sure to just fill your cup, just like Lizzie said. Newsflash, we were married to the same guy, right? Mine 27 years, Lizzie second. And he took her shopping and just normal things with the kids, and started becoming a family with her, like right away. Filled her cup, figured out what she needed for her personal cup to be filled, and filled it.
Hello, F.E.E.L podcast audience. Welcome back today. I'm your host, Melissa Crook. And we've got the double mint twins here. We got if you guys are my age, for you youngers, for you guys 40 and under, you're like, what is she talking about? Ask your aunts or your moms or whatever. But I've got twice the fun here today, twice the incredible story, actually. And they're on the other side of a journey that was very difficult and had a lot of twists and turns to it. And the way they came together and worked together now reads a little bit like a Lifetime movie. I mean, or something you might see on Netflix. And my friend Cheryl Schultz, who's also the friend of Deana's, introduced me. Cheryl and I are in the Fresno County Women's Chamber of Commerce together. And she and I met to get to know each other after I had joined the chamber a few months back. And we were just to see how we could support each other. And you have also heard from her this season a couple of weeks ago, but she's like, oh, you've got to talk to my friend Deana Lynn. She has got a podcast. She has got a story. She and her friend Lizzie Jane, you got to meet them. I'm like, okay. And so we did a few weeks later, and boy, she was right. And these ladies have, like I said, have quite an impactful story. And the discussion of abuse will come up today because this is a form of abuse that they were both involved in this relationship that they were both involved in at a time in their lives. But they found each other and they supported each other and maybe even rescued each other a little bit. And I will let them tell that story. But I want to welcome Deana Lynn and Lizzie Jane to the F.E.E.L podcast. And before I let them get started, I'm going to let you know what their character traits are that they shared with me that they'd like to be introduced by. Deana Lynn describes herself as energetic, extroverted, empathetic, and motivated. And Lizzie Jane describes herself as resilient, compassionate, empowering, and wise. Ladies, welcome to the F.E.E.L podcast.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you. We're so glad to be here.
Oh, yes. I can't wait to get into this. And we're going to get right into this. We're going to start with prioritizing self-care in your life. Deana, I'm going to start with you. Talk to me about your journey with that.
Now, would you like me to talk about self-care, when I was in this toxic relationship? Is that kind of where we want to focus?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And then also just kind of how you've evolved and where you are today.
Absolutely. So just to start out, I was married to a very toxic, sexually addicted narcissist for 27 years. And I ended up having 4 little kids with him. And I tell you, self-care was probably not, honestly, in existence. There was no time. There was no space. There was no money. He also had a financial problem and definitely a lot of financial abuse in the relationship. So self-care was not a thing that I even had ever heard of. And I remember I did come to a point, during that time more than once where I was on the brink of what felt like a nervous breakdown because, sometimes I worked 2 to 3 jobs just to try to make up for the income that just wasn't there. And 4 little kids in itself is very challenging. And, I grew up in a home that we didn't have any money. There was never money. So I did the best I could and worked as much as I could and made the income that I could. But to be honest, I don't remember really ever having self-care ever because I didn't know how. I was a giver. I was very empathetic, but to a toxic level where I just took care of everybody and everything in my life because it gave me value and people just needed me and they would call me all the time. I remember one time I actually had 52 phone calls in one day from different people and ministries. And I'd be put in charge of women's ministries that, that women were struggling with husbands who had some sort of a sexual addiction. And I mean, it was like, I couldn't say no ever. So moving from there to finally being done with that relationship after 27 years, I went into another phase of my life where I started realizing how important self-care was. I went through a very complete job burnout where I ended up getting a manager position, which was wonderful. Kids were older, so they didn't need as much, at home time with mom. Things had settled down, found a new husband who was love of my life still. And things were looking good, but I was giving my all, just like I always did, to this job. It's salary, right? So they expect you to work 24/7. And that's what I did. It wasn't until I completely burned out in midlife and actually had health issues from the burnout that I realized how important self-care was and what it was. I had to actually start searching for what that looked like, what I needed, what did make me feel calm and relaxed and more centered. And so from then to this day, I have learned it is not just something that's nice and sweet and that you should do to treat yourself. It is literally a lifeline, especially when you get to the age where your hormones are crazy. Your body is doing crazy things it's never done before. You've got joint problems. You might have back problems. You might have migraines. You might have hormonal fluctuations. You might not be sleeping at all. And all these things happen and you've got to do something or you're not going to function. And so self-care for me has become a complete lifeline, and it is a complete myriad of the foofy things like maybe getting a massage, to the other spectrum of I literally have got to learn how to not take on so much in my life. How to give some things up, even if it means it's going to cost me, even if it's going to be a little bit of financial strain, and take control of my life and give it order. And Lizzie knows I'm not there yet. Now I have 4 kids plus 4 stepkids plus 12 grandchildren. So my life is crazy still.
Sure.
But it came to a point where I burned out so badly in my job that I needed to actually leave work altogether. That was the biggest point of self-care that I have ever done. And it was terrifying. But I tell you what, it brought all my cortisol levels down. It brought all of my health issues into more of a manageable state. Everything got better and I'm able to thrive. So that's my self-care story.
Wow. And you really, within that, the healthy boundaries piece, which is our next talking point, but that really became, you've already really addressed that. That became a part of your self-care journey, which so many times people, I'm like, setting healthy boundaries for your time and yourself and making sure you're not the first one that gets kicked out of your calendar when things come up. Those things go together.
They do. 100% they do. And, even toxic people in your life.
Oh,
I hate to say that, but, I left my ex, but I didn't even realize that I was surrounded by toxic people in my life who honestly were there because I was just always there for them. And nobody was giving back. Nobody was feeding into my life. Nobody was there when I called and needed help. If I wanted to call and chat with them or empty out my heart. And so I started having to set boundaries even on the people in my life. And that's really hard too.
It is. It is, because you find out real quick when you start making yourself a priority, you find out real quick who's just been there to take and who's actually there for you and wants authentically the best for you, healthiest for you, whatever that looks like. Becomes real clear, and that can really be hurtful. But it's also, once you get through that hurtful piece, you realize, oh my gosh, I have got all this time all of a sudden. And the people that are in my life, they're pouring into me too.
Exactly. Your life will look completely different if you can really zoom out and truly take account of who truly is giving back into your life and who's just constantly taking.
Yeah, 1,000%. All right, Lizzie, it is your turn.
Well, okay. So my self-care does look a little different than Deana's. I think for me, I'd been married twice. So my first husband was married 14 years. I had 4 kids with him, very young, lots of abuse. And I got out of that after 14 years. I was single for 10, then met my second husband. It was like a whirlwind of a what would you call a courtship of, helping me get the kids to practice and doing all kinds of stuff. So between that point, self-care was surviving. But when I found out that my second husband, something was off, and I found out he was pretty much having a double life, so to speak. Actually, I started the divorce process before I found out he had a double life. And I think through my pain and through that trauma situation, I really journaled. I ended up doing, because this is where Deana and I are really different. She is an extrovert. I'm an introvert. So I need to rejuvenate alone very quietly. So I started journaling. I did journal to God. But I also, in my darkest times, I would put 3 blessings or 3 things to be grateful for. And sometimes it was just something as simple as just waking up at night, waking up to go to work or getting through the workday. But I did find that those things helped me with my mental self-care. And it did help me carry through the trauma. And even to this day, I don't journal every day like I used to for my self-care purposes. I do a lot more like meditation, prayer, and just focus. I have to be quiet. I have to find that through journaling and being quiet, I can really hear my body. I can tell when my body needs to shut down. I can tell when I need to get some rest. I could tell when my body is even fighting something, because I can start feeling the fatigue. And I think if I don't have those quiet moments, I won't be able to hear what the needs of my body is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my self-care journey right there.
Well, and you have, and I'd say that boundaries tie in really nicely here too for you, because you recognize I need to make time for the quiet so I can shut down all the noise. And because there's so much noise in our lives, and we operate so disassociated from our bodies as women, so many times for so many years, which is honestly for both of you probably played a role. I would imagine, and I'll let you speak to this, but I'm in the getting into the relationships you got into because you weren't listening to your body and the cues that she was probably trying to send you about this. And we'll let you speak to that in a moment when we talk about that emotional, mental, physical health connections. But that piece took boundaries. And then, but I think it's such an important point that you recognized that, because when you've been in abusive relationships, there's no room for you. You mentioned earlier you were in survival mode. And then classic narcissists, they come in, they sweep you off your feet. They become this angel helper, helping you take care of the kids and run them all the places. Oh, I bet my knight in shining armor, blah, blah, blah. And then once they've got you, then the mask comes off and you're in it. And And so all of those, all of these things that would protect you, paying attention and listening to those body cues and having those healthy boundaries around that time, don't exist until you're in it and you're like, oh shoot, I hate this. It's not going. Would you say that's true for you?
Yes, 100%. And then especially when you get out and you start getting out of the brain fog of everything. And you don't get out of the brain fog until you're out of the relationship.
Yeah.
Because then I think you're constantly in that emotional whiplash that's never ending. And some people do choose to stay, but I also believe that it's something you're going to have to understand. You will have a brain fog. You got to understand what you're going through. That's part of self-care. If you decide to stay in a relationship that's not ideal, because Deana and I both come from our background from church where, once married, always married. So we probably did stick it out longer than the norm, and a lot of these people, women, there's some of them still are in it. So self-care is going to look really different. The question is, are they able to realize that what they need is self-care to see through the fog?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a really good point. Anything else that you want to add, Lizzie, to the boundaries piece? And I'll give you a chance to, Deana, as well, before we move into talking about that emotional, mental, physical, spiritual health connection.
Well, I think for me, boundaries, I had to learn what boundaries were. I think that's part of being, when we stay stuck in those types of toxic relationships, no matter what they are, we don't know what our boundaries should look like. Yeah. And so first learning that boundaries can help build relationships. Yes, they're doors with locks that we get to manage. And then learning to say no doesn't make you unloving or unkind or not empathetic. So I think that's part of the whole boundary process. But at the same time, you're learning to respect your own internal self and your own mental and health well-being, which will go to the next part.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Deana, how about you? Anything to add?
I just want to add that if we, especially as women, because women do tend to be more victimized. There are definitely men that are too. So I 100% have seen that in my own life and family. But we really need to understand what boundaries are. And I mean, if you have to read the book called Boundaries, if you have to do research, if you have to really understand it deeply, because you can't just understand, okay, boundaries are making wise choices for yourself, or boundaries are saying no if you're exhausted and you shouldn't take on that extra task. But it's more important. There are predators everywhere in this world right now, everywhere. And the most insidious predator is the one that wants to get a relationship with you, marry you, become legally bound with you, and then just suck you dry. And if you have children, your children are not exempt to being, abused or completely drained of anything they might have. And so really understand, please be so clear. What do boundaries look like when protecting ourselves from people that pretend to be one thing and they're not? And that could be people in your church or in your community or at your school, and then training your children also to understand that. What are boundaries? What do they look like? Because I feel like we do tend to always try to be, especially if we're really nice people, we try to be the nice person. We try to not offend anybody. We try to not make them feel bad. So we get into these relationships, and sometimes we get into a relationship because they adore us. We haven't even taken the time to really figure out who they are and if we really respect and admire them. And if people in their life around them are healthy people that respect and admire them. We just get really fed by them putting us on a pedestal, which is exactly what narcissists and manipulators do. They put you on a pedestal, make you feel like you're the most beautiful and amazing person, often way too quickly when they really don't know you yet. They love bomb, and you fall in love with how much they love you. You don't necessarily fall in love with them, right? Because you don't even know who they are yet. They make sure to just fill your cup, just like Lizzie said. Newsflash, we were married to the same guy, right? Mine 27 years, Lizzie second. And he took her shopping and just normal things with the kids and started becoming a family with her, like right away. Filled her cup, figured out what she needed for her personal cup to be filled, and filled it. See? And so again, really understanding, what do predators do? What do they look like? What are some really strong signs to look for? That would be the most important boundary I want to convey to all of you out there. Please know what you're looking for.
Yeah. And look, it just goes back to that importance of knowing your value and knowing that you don't need someone. Like, you may desire to have a relationship, but it never feels like a need. It feels like a choice. It feels like, yeah. And yes, it might hurt if this person left, but I know I'll be okay. Versus, oh my gosh, I will not make it if they leave. I need them. And we'll talk about that more when we talk about relationships later. But I think and that trusting yourself, listen to your intuition. You talk back to what Lizzie said, get quiet, pay attention, and just those clues, Deana, such good clues of like, if this is going faster than you think it should, then get curious about that. And I mean, because those are, if it seems too good to be true, it might be too good to be true.
Exactly. Well said.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love what you said about you're in love with the way they're loving you, the way they're showing up for you. You're not actually, and that is such an important point as you're thinking about how you feel about this person. Oh man, ask yourself that question. That was so good. Such a good point. Okay. Taking care of our emotional health, our mental health, our physical health. You all have both talked a bit about this a little bit already in your journeys, how these impacts have come up for you when you've pushed too hard and it started showing up and manifesting itself in other ways. Lizzie, talk to me about your journey with that and I mean, you've already tended to it, that ability to get quiet so you can hear and listen to your body. Talk to me about that pivotal point where you realized that was necessary for you.
I think when I started to get extremely ill constantly, which is not uncommon when you go through a lot of emotional trauma, emotional stress. Even though I was quiet and listening to myself, I was still pushing myself to survive. And I think that journaling definitely helped with the mental health, especially when you realize you've been gaslighted, because it kind of lets you go back and look at things as far as, oh, wait a minute. I did see it this way, and he's trying to tell me it happened this way. I know it happened the way I saw it. But I think all of those kind of played into fruition for me. Like I said, my emotional health, just I think the survival, because we'd gotten to a point where we were also looking for the other woman. We found out 5 days after my divorce that he was leading a double life while he was still married and living with me. And something in us told us to search for her. Well, with all that stress and tension, I mean, I kept trying to survive and go to work and deal with the emotional trauma. I was not in a place that I would have called home, because I didn't have a lot of like friends physically surrounding me. I probably looked like a nutcase, right? Because emotional health does that when you're going through trauma. And through that, I went through a lot of physical health issues that just continually dragged me down, including, I mean, we all had probably a little form of COVID or lots of COVID, but it ended up like compromising my lungs and other issues and my whole respiratory. And it took me probably years to recover from all of that. But that to me is evidence of emotional health and how it breaks down your immune system. I don't get sick as often, but I've also, because of the journey, I have learned that if I don't sit quietly and really listen to what's going through my body. The repercussions, I think even Deana says, it knocks me down, not just for a day or two, it'll knock me down possibly for a month. So it's really critical, especially if you're coming out of that type of trauma, to really learn who you are. Yeah.
Well, it's just that, our bodies are not designed to run in hypervigilant fight or flight cortisol levels through the roof all the time. We're not, that's not what we're made for. We're not made to be continually running from the lion without any break from the lion. That's essentially what happens. Deana, talk to me. Yeah. Oh, thank you for that, Lizzie. So good. Okay. Deana, you mentioned, one, you came out of this relationship, but then you went into this burnout from your job. So you kind of had almost tier 1 and tier 2. I feel like a little bit happening here with your emotional, mental, physical, spiritual health kind of colliding when things weren't being tended to. So talk to me about those parts of the journey.
So ironically, during the time that I was burning out on my job, it was partly because I had a very toxic, narcissistic boss who rose up to the position over me. And before we were at the same position. And then she rose up and became my boss. And at that point, I didn't even realize it, but she had decided that I was going to be gone from the company. And I'd been there at that point for about 4 years, I would say. And, I, being very naive still, I just did not recognize the signs, because while we were co-managers, we got along just fine. There was no problem. I liked her. Of course, I like everybody, and I always think everybody's got good intentions, and I never look at people like they might be evil. And so that unfortunately played into all of the job burnout, was the fact that there was this target on my back. And she was definitely a covert narcissist, because the things that she did were so sly and quiet that I don't think I could have ever gone to HR. Now, looking back now, I could have, because there was a pattern of many, many, many things. But they were like, here's an example. I had won an award, and my previous director, who was retiring, and that's why she took his place. He was retiring, and he said, you actually, got the highest employee satisfaction awards for your management. He's like, congratulations. And I was like, oh my gosh, amazing. Well, next thing I know, I'm in a meeting, and she stands up and congratulates me for being most improved. So it was like a compliment, but like a slap in the face. And then was talking about,
like, you had work to do.
Yeah, she was talking about her team's employee satisfaction scores, which they'd only been, on her team for about a month. And this is something they measure for an entire year. Yeah. But it was just those types of things. It was like, it'd be little backhanded compliments that were actually slaps in the face. It would be little, oh, you didn't get the memo for the meeting with the CFO? Oh, well, that's too bad you didn't make it. Like, he was pretty upset. It was sabotage. So I tell you what, once again, I did not know how to process all those emotions. I had just come out of my previous relationship, maybe 2 years prior, and dealing with him, the previous relationship that Lizzie and I shared, him filing bankruptcy as well, after I barely got everything paid off that we had, the debt. We split the debt, even though I didn't create most of the debt. We split it. I paid my part off. My credit started coming up. I was so excited. I was so happy. It was like amazing. And then he files bankruptcy. So he filed bankruptcy, which drug my credit in the toilet, which I had no clue that was possible, because we'd been divorced a couple of years. But any credit card or any payment that's both of your names, if they file bankruptcy, if your name's not off it, those creditors are coming after you. So long story, but I'm trying to just make a point that I was going through all of that at the same time. And next thing I knew, I was physically crashing. I was shaking all the time. My adrenaline system was off the charts. I mean, I was starving. My blood sugar was crashing. It was like you said, the cortisol, the lion chasing you for too many years. It just couldn't happen anymore. Yeah. So finding those ways to process the emotions I know I love how Lizzie does it. I love how she was journaling a whole lot back then. And that was her way of, I'm not really a journaler. Like I'm very ADD, so I get bored. So for me, it's really just probably sitting down and just having a conversation. Like I need to talk things out. I got to talk things out. I need someone to just sit and listen to me, as you can probably tell. And that's how I was able to sit down and process. And luckily my second husband is wonderful, and he would listen to me talk. And as I would talk about things that were happening at work or things, that I was feeling, and he would just validate me, and then Lizzie and I were, not quite friends yet. But even now we're such good friends that I can like bounce stuff off her and just tell her, just basically vomit all the stuff I'm going through. And that helps me hear what I'm saying, which is why therapy is so valuable, right? Because it's really, you hearing what you're saying and you hearing the unraveling of your thoughts and emotions to help you kind of make sense of it so that you can process it. Yeah. So that's how I, take care of those things.
Yeah. Process it so you don't stuff it and it gets stuck again. So you don't end up back to square one. Such an important point. All right. We're going into now supporting ourselves and other women in living unapologetically. Part one, well, we'll get to part one in a minute. Part two is you all doing this podcast together, which we're going to give you a chance to talk about at the end. This is really you taking your stories together and being like, we can be a source and a support and resource for other people and hopefully help them either get out of or avoid altogether these situations. But to get to that point, Deana, you had to take some steps in realizing this woman might need my help, my support, something. So tell me the story of both of you. Start with Deana, and you tell the story of how you all came together.
All right. Well, here's the story. So I had been divorced from, we call him Rex, our ex. I'd been divorced from him for 6 years. And I knew about Lizzie, of course, because she was, even though my kids were grown, she was their stepmom. And they, would occasionally go visit dad and go to her house. And they would tell me, she's a wonderful lady, Mom. Like, she's a really wonderful lady. I don't think dad treats her right, but she's wonderful. And I would feel that kind of sting of guilt. Like, should I have told her? Should I have told her about him? I mean, the things he did, in secret, in the dark, we won't go into, they're disgusting, but there's so many things. And he started off their relationship with a complete lie, telling her that he and I had been divorced for 2 years. We weren't even divorced, yet. Telling her that I was in another state. I was right there in his same state, and on it goes. So when it came time, there's a day that came, and my son called me and he said, Mom, Lizzie's leaving dad. I'm pretty sure she's leaving dad. Like she's really upset. And he said, I think you should call her. And I think you should tell her everything you went through. I think that would really be helpful for her. And I asked him, are you sure? Because I wanted to make sure that she didn't think I was just the crazy ex. And he's like, no, I really think she'd listen to you. So I did. I reached out to Lizzie and just open the door for us to talk. And that led to us talking for hours, I think it was, that first time. And I remember just sitting on the floor with my back against the wall and just telling her everything, because I wanted so bad to rescue her from what I'd been through. I didn't want her to go through another 21 years of this kind of hell, and so it was really cathartic for me. I know for sure for her too, but also for me, because it was so validating. Because after that much time in a relationship, even though you're pretty positive that that's who they are, they're not going to change, you do just kind of wonder, like, did I invest all that time and all of that hard work? I mean, we went to counseling left and right. I mean, we had the work that was put in was incredible. And to throw that out, was really tough. And so it was really helpful to know that, what, he would do it to her, and she's a wonderful lady. And he would do the exact same thing. So definitely very clear here who the culprit is. And it's very validating to you that you can truly move on and realize there never would have been anything good there.
Yeah.
So
there was nothing to save. And good on your son. I mean, I think that, that tells me that you raised some really, really kind, empathetic kids too. Because that is not a story you hear every day. And so what an impact that had. Lizzie, what was that like when she called you the first time? I mean, did their kids give you any heads up? We think you should talk to our mom, or was this a total surprise?
No, because he asked, would it be okay if I let my mom know? She understands. She lived with him for 27 years and she knows who he is, but I want to make sure that you're okay with that, because he doesn't want to do something and step on my toes or whatever.
Sure.
Like, what do I have to lose at that point? I'm like,
right.
Sure, go ahead. Because one thing I did always feel that Deana was also a very good woman, even though I knew that Rex kind of probably woven some stuff in. Especially like things that kind of fell apart at the end. So when she first texted me and she said, "You're not crazy. You're not alone." She validated what I was experiencing, because at that point I had already just moved. I moved out, but I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I just wanted. I had called the oldest son just to let him know that I had left their father. There was some concerns there, and I felt like they needed to know. Because obviously his ex-wife doesn't need to know this stuff. But then when she messaged me, it was, game changer. And then we talked, I think, a couple of days later, and it's really interesting. I'm in a house with nothing. I pretty much walked away with from everything. And I'm like Deana was sitting on the wall on the floor, and I was sitting in the corner of the house, and we were talking nonstop, and she was telling me things. And at that point I knew that my separation was going to be a divorce. Things started adding up. I'm going, okay, you have that much history. I already had a horrible gut feeling, and I didn't know about the double life at that point, but I was like, I spent 14 years of abuse with my first husband. I left him probably 5 times. There was no way I was going to go through this my second time around. Yeah. Because I've been there, done that. And I know Deana was so concerned that I'd keep going back because that's what she did. But I was like, but I did that with my first marriage.
Right.
You learn a little more, hopefully, with the second time around. Sure. Obviously, I didn't learn everything, but I did learn that at our age, we were 50. No. So that's where that all started. And it was very affirming. And I remember telling Deana, we're going to tell our story to the world. We're going to tell our story to the world, especially when we found out about this other person that had no idea that she was with somebody that was leading a double life.
Wow. I mean, kudos to both of you, but I think this is where your kind hearts and your empathy won, because you were able to show up for each other without spite and malice and all those things. And so what I think is so beautiful with the both of you is that despite these harmful relationship dynamics, it didn't steal your soul. And that can happen in these things. It can make you very bitter and very disenchanted with life and very angry. And I'm sure that some of that exists that you've had to work through, but at your core of cores, you were still able to stay true to who you are. And I think that's remarkable.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, because even Deana and I, with this journey, I think when we want to look at what are we doing with other women, we are now passionate not just to share our story, but to really help people learn how to escape the bullet. Because I lost a good friend from domestic violence, and he was never physically abusive. It was all mental. Yeah. And so it's like people need to look at these warning signs. And I think what does make us different is the fact that we aren't gender bashing. Yeah. We didn't stay we didn't stay in a lifetime of anger and bitterness or victim mentality. That doesn't mean we weren't there at one time, like you said. I think that was a whole natural process to go through. But the key element is you don't stay stuck there, and to find strategies to make sure that you can rise up from the pain, so that way you can live a healthy life. Because I've seen victims from severe abuse live in such a victim mentality and so much anger that they're uncomfortable to be with. Like,
yeah.
So now they're becoming the toxic person because they're not really facing their issues or their pain and their trauma.
Yeah. I mean, hurt people. I mean, it's a true fact. I've heard a couple of people say it in this way, and it's a very startling, but I think accurate visual. Your wounds bleed all over everybody else if you're not able to tend to your wounds. And so, so for the both of you to have that awareness, because, what happened, unfortunately for you, Lizzie, what happened is not an unfortunate thing. You were in a vulnerable state. You come out of this abusive relationship. You have these children. You're in a vulnerable state. He saw that vulnerability and he went right in and took advantage of that. And that's not an unusual pattern. Deana, you had the heart to be like, no, we got to stop this pattern. Talk to me about jointly, if you can, and you may not be able to, and if you can't, that's totally fine too, your conversation, or was there ever a conversation with that third woman or were you not able to?
Oh yeah. We can talk about it. Yeah. We can talk about it. Yeah. So there was. So, when Lizzie and I connected, it wasn't long after we connected and became friends that she went to pick up her things from Rex's house and found these cards and letters and pictures and dates even, of him having this life with this other woman. And it took us a little while, but we finally found her on Facebook and didn't see him in any of her Facebook pictures. But we could tell that she was just a lovely lady, just wonderful, had grown kids like us, a lot of similarities, a faith-based woman like we are. And so we set out, like, we know that Rex, as soon as Lizzie and he divorced, we know that he's going to probably, because looking at the dates, he'd been with her at this point for almost a year.
Oh, wow.
And we knew that he's going to try to marry her immediately because that's what he does. Dupe you and become a family with you and marry you. And so it took us, gosh, how long did it take, Lizzie, before we caught up with him or with her? Well, we reached out, and then how many weeks was it? I can't remember until she reached out back to us.
So Deana always laughs at me because I have dates. So you're looking at June 2nd, she messaged, we call her Jane, and on Facebook Messenger, but it was 5 weeks later that she finally saw it. And then Deana, that's your story.
Okay. Yeah. So because we couldn't find her, we couldn't get a message to her. We tried and tried. I just left her a Facebook message. Of course, we weren't friends on Facebook. So I left her, knowing we might go somewhere weird, but I'm going to leave her a message. And in essence, it said, hey, listen, Jane, when you find this, Lizzie and I just want you to know that we can tell that you're a wonderful person. And we don't know if you're still with Rex or not, but we want to let you know that we're pretty positive you had no idea he was married when you were dating him. And when you find this, please reach out. And if you want to, you don't have to. We're not angry. We hold nothing against you. This is literally for your own help and support. But if you want to reach out, please do. So then, like Lizzie said, it was 5 weeks later that she reached out. And the phone call was pretty crazy because she was completely confused. She asked, is this Deana? And I said, yes. Now I knew who she was because it had popped up on the call on Facebook.
Sure.
And she said, okay. And I said, you know who I am? She said, yes. And I said, are you still with Rex? And she said, yes. She said, I know you're with him for this many years. I know you guys have 4 kids. She's like, I know all about you. Who is Lizzie? And she was so confused. So he had just cut Lizzie out of the history of his life and told her he'd been single for 6 years.
Oh my
and
gosh.
had been making a family with her and her children and her mom and her entire family. And this poor lady, this poor Jane, was so confused as to how in the world he could have been married all that time. And she started asking questions. Now she's getting hysterical. Now you can hear just the absolute terror rising up in her voice. Mm-hmm. She's like, where does Lizzie live? What's going on? Yeah. That house. She's like, I've driven by his house where he takes care of that little old couple. And she's like, was that really Lizzie's house? I said, yes, that was their house where they live. There's no old couple. He's not taking care of an old couple. And then she gets like really hysterical and she's like, the red coat that the little old lady gave me, is that Lizzie's? And I was like, probably Lizzie. And she's just beside herself. And then it dawns on her that her son is on a motorcycle ride right then and there with Rex. They're on a road trip together, and she's realizing, I don't even know who this man is. And by the way, they had just gotten married. So we caught up.
Actually, before Deana keeps going, I just want to say that Deana, she sent that Facebook message. If she had seen it on that day, she would have learned the truth because she married him the day after that message was sent on Facebook. I had to sort that.
Gosh, shoot. But also short enough time to get an annulment, but I don't want to assume anything happened.
Yeah. So that's exactly what happened. Rex was on this trip for 2 more days or so with her son. And of course she's literally freaking out and, asking us what kind of person this is. And we're reassuring her he's not going to harm your son, that kind of thing. Yeah, he's crazy in a lot of ways. And so 2 days later, by the time he pulls back in the driveway with her son, she'd been in constant communication with him and telling him that she and her mom and all the family were going to gather to celebrate them coming home from their bike ride. They're going to have a big dinner. It's going to be wonderful. So keep me posted, honey, when you're going to get here. And this little sassy lady was a hairdresser and she knew everybody in her small town. And when he pulled in, she had police escort him in to the driveway. She had an annulment, she had a restraining order, and she had a court date, and his car was packed. And he gets off that bike and the police hand him everything. And they're like, get out, don't ever see her again. And then, of course, he starts yelling toward the house, I didn't get to tell my side of the story. And yeah, the rest is history, except for the fact that the minute the annulment went through, he moved off to another state and married one of his sister's friends.
Oh my gosh. He's just a serial
predator.
Yes. Wow. Okay. So let's move into your why and your values. You all very clearly have big hearts with a why of caring for others, but you've learned how to do it in a healthy way. So talk to me about that where your why and your values played a role in you all deciding, because Lizzie, you made that statement at one point, we're going to tell our story and we're going to help people with this. When did you realize that would take the form of the podcast?
Well, I figured it would be blogs and everything else because me as the introvert,
yes.
Speaking or just more of the writing process of everything.
Sure.
And then, I'm like, Deana, you're coming with me.
I'm not doing this solo.
We're going to do this together because we'd be a mighty team. And we found out that he had a type. And no matter what, she's the extrovert, I'm the introvert. We have so much in common that that's why we could spend hours on the phone. That's why we can enjoy ourselves together in quiet or doing something. Mm-hmm. But that was the beauty of it, obviously. But then it was Deana. She said, why don't we not do a blog, but let's do a podcast? And then it was my turn to go, oh, okay. Because when you first put me in front of the mic, I was petrified.
Yeah.
I'm going to let Deana take it from here.
And then that turned into YouTube. And so Lizzie couldn't even be in the background, just her voice. Like now we have this thriving YouTube channel that we started. So we use all our videos for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
talk to me about the impact that has had for you in your own journeys of healing, but also realizing, man, this didn't all go to waste. Like we have tools and resources to help other people see this now and get out of this and give them the support that they need.
It was kind of interesting because not too long ago, someone said, oh, you found your calling. And as weird as it may have sounded, I felt like all of my journey brought me to this place because I love what I'm doing. And I love reaching the beautiful women that we've met so far. Even though they may be in really dark places, it's seeing those aha moments or I am not alone, because anybody that's journeyed through this, that feeling of loneliness hits hard because your immediate circle of who you talk to may not understand because they've not been there. Sure. But the beautiful thing with technology now is we can spread it farther and louder. And these people realize that there are other women that can connect with them and men. But like Deana said, right now we focus on the women. It really rejuvenates. It really makes the journey of heartache and pain. I know this may sound crazy, worth it. Worth it. Like I do believe that if we really work through all of our hurts and pains and we heal no matter where it is or how it comes about, that everything we've gone through can be used for a better purpose. Even if it just helps one person.
Right.
It's worth it.
Yeah. Deana, do you want to add anything to that?
Oh, God, that was so beautifully said, Lizzie. The only thing I'd probably add is that it also, if you allow what you went through, like you'd earlier said, Melissa, to not make you bitter and angry and, I hate men, I hate this, I don't trust that. I mean, if you allow this to instead bring out the beauty in who you are, because it created so much depth of character and it created, pain. I mean, I hate to say it, but pain and trauma, if you process it correctly, you can literally be a spring of fresh water for people that are just starving and they're thirsty and they don't know where to go. And nobody can really relate to them unless somebody who, who's been through it.
Yeah.
And so, it can bring out this incredible beauty in you and this depth of wisdom. So, along with what Lizzie said, it'll change you as a person. And I don't regret going through any of it. I really don't. I don't. I tell you, the person I am today is nothing like the person that I used to be. And I'm grateful that I have something to offer, Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the next point is living out of your own expectations versus others. You all coming together like you have is definitely defying expectations. It is not the normal script, which is what I love, because this is women supporting women. This is women not seeing each other as the competition or the enemy. You two are modeling that so beautifully. If women could put aside all the muck, because in narcissistic relationships, they want you to be pitted against each other. They want you to feel isolated. They want your family members and your friends to think you're crazy so that you will stay in line. You two both defied that. And you said, no. Not only are we going to save each other, we're going to Jane. We're going to save her too. And so to already defying expectations within that, talk to me about the responses, or what kind of responses you've had in regards to that, and how you just continue to honor living out of your own expectations by doing the work you're doing today. Deana, go ahead and go first with that.
Well, I think it's definitely been a journey of, let's just start with the first thing. Like, we didn't know anything about anything. We knew nothing about any kind of social media. I mean, nothing. And so I think at first, if you're going to take your story and you're going to try to use it to help other people, keep your expectations just really small. You know, even if you talk to somebody at the restaurant, you know, you connect with someone that you're sitting next to and you tell them your story, or, you know, you just start a little blog, or, you know, or whatever. But those expectations will definitely keep growing. They're going to find their own path. I truly believe that we all have a path, and I believe that we all have a purpose. And when you go through something, don't waste it. Let it become part of that beautiful purpose and reaching other people that maybe you're only 1 or 2 steps ahead of them. Maybe they're in it and you just barely got out of it, but you could be a lifeline. And so just keeping those expectations to really believe in your heart of hearts, no matter how awful it is and no matter how broken you feel and worthless and completely demeaned, because that's what these people do. They will demean you to where you feel like nothing. Even my narcissistic boss made me really question. I'd been in leadership for 5 years and I literally said, I must be the worst leader in the whole world. I went from thriving and having great reviews and all that to literally thinking, I am completely a failure. So remember that those are normal feelings that you have to process through, because somebody else made you feel that way and maybe even made you react in ways that made yourself feel that way. And manage those expectations that when that healing comes, you're going to have so much clarity and things are going to be so different, and you will be able to then be that spring of water for somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So good. Lizzie, how about you?
Well, I think you both said it so well. I'm like, wow, it was beautifully said. I think it's really important to remember we're not just one story. We're many chapters. And I think sometimes we think that whatever we've gone through, that's what defines us, right? But it's not. It's just the beginning, and it's learning to step out of your comfort zone and into an uncomfortable place, because that's how change and growth happens. It doesn't happen because I stay rooted where I am. It's because I make that change and that step. Like Deana said, just one small thing, you know, just one small change that week. What's one thing new I can do this week to better myself or to help somebody else who may be in these situations? I think sometimes we look for the big picture when we just need to look at the steps in front of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Those little decisions you make and how they add up. This goes nicely, so good, into accepting the layered aspects of ourselves, because that's what you all have done. And when you use the word chapters, Lizzie, that's such a good point. We tend to want to stay stuck in a layer or a chapter because we're scared of what the other ones hold, or we have shame around them, or we fear them, or we think it's going to be too hard to move through them, or we just want to forget it and move on. But we know that's not how it works. You all have already shared how these things spill over and they start causing problems in other areas of our life if we don't address them. But it can be really difficult to acknowledge, and you don't even have to love all the layers and chapters, but just a simple acknowledgement and, curiosity rather than judgment. And a lot of empathy and patience. You all have both been able to do that. It's really remarkable. Do you have anything, we'll start with you, Lizzie, that you want to share with listeners that have helped you to embrace all those layers, all those chapters?
I think by just even, like you said, just saying it. I'm a survivor. I'm a mother. I'm a grandmother. I'm a leader. I'm a woman of faith. I do carry grief, but I also carry joy. I have strength. I have softness. The layers don't make me complicated. They make me whole.
Oh my God. That's so good. Oh my word. You should write that down. That is so good. Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. Deana, how about you?
Wow, Lizzie.
I know that's a hard one to follow. Holy cow.
I know shoe drop.
Yeah,
mic
exactly.
Drop.
Mic
You
drop.
drop a shoe or a mic?
Shoot, we'll throw a shoe, we'll drop a mic, we'll do all the things.
I love it. Perfect. A shoe mic drop.
And kick the can.
Yes, that too. Those of us our age know what she's talking about. The rest of you, if you're below 50, look that up.
Ask your mom.
Exactly.
You know what? This kind of goes hand in hand with what Lizzie said, but it really do the work. Do the work. When you get out of a relationship that was toxic, that was, that changed your definition of you and did some damage to you and your family. Do the work, like put in the work, like, get books about codependency, get books about the narcissism, but do not focus on that ex person so hardcore, what they're doing, what they're, who they're with now, they're not, and you just don't obsess over them. You have to really let them go, and you have to get to focus on you for a change and put in that work. And that to me was the most important aspect of growing into my better self, was putting in the work and really taking a deep dive and understanding, who is this person? I mean, I was just the shadow, I was just the mom. I was just the, who am I though? Who am I? And what do I need to heal? Where's some issues inside of me that I didn't even realize were there? And it wasn't until I met my second husband that it was like a very harsh mirror on how much damage was done in that previous relationship. I felt pretty okay until that. And boy, I tell you, sometimes it takes something like that to realize that, wow, there is work to be done here. There's way more healing that has to happen. And as hard as it is, and as painful and exhausting as it is, you don't have to do it all at once. You can do baby steps like Lizzie talked about, but put in the work to get yourself healthy and reach out to people that are wiser than you, or therapists or a life coach, and put the work in. It's so, so, so important to become, the higher nature of your best self.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah. Know your value. Knowing you discard all those lies you've been told and know your value. So good. Oh, so good. All right. In living out F.E.E.L, finding empowerment, embracing layers, which is the acronym in this whole network that we talk about here, is built around, you all have done that work. Talk to me, Lizzie, we'll start with you, about how that has impacted your relationship with yourself and your relationship with other people. And we touched on this a little bit earlier, when that realization of how many toxic people you had in your life were like, whoops, we got to do some work here. He was not the only one. But Lizzie, go ahead and talk to us about that impact once you made these shifts on your relationship with yourself and with other people.
I think it was learning to be showing up more fully in situations. It's being completely present. I think it's so easy to sit there, even in a conversation, and maybe let our mind drift, but really be present in these relationships, in the moment of whatever I'm going through, loving more deeply, and no longer shrinking to make others comfortable. Because when I look at even what Deana and I are doing, talking about toxic relationships and abuse is not a comfortable conversation. In fact, it's kind of the conversations that people don't want to talk about. It's not one people enjoy, but yet we know it's critical. So for me, it's just being 100% present, being willing to feel and all that.
Yeah, thank you. Deana, how about you?
Yeah, I love what Lizzie said. And I would just add to that, just find your voice, just find your voice. And that could look really different than what you think. But it is, especially with the empowerment part, I love that you included that in that acronym. Empowerment feels like I'm going to be on top of the world, and I'm going to be, successful and admired, and everybody's going to look up to me. And it actually could look a lot different. You could actually be a very humble, a kind, but smart, wise, a kind but wise person that, gives of yourself, but only to people that truly, truly deserve it. But really, empowerment can be that quiet inner strength that you've been through something, you've come out the other side, and you're going to be a lot wiser, and those around you are going to be much more protected and safe. I mean, I submitted my children to this stuff. Yeah. I regret that.
Yeah.
But definitely take empowerment and make sure that you understand that just means that you've overcome what you've been through, and you've overcome in the best way possible, that you come out grateful and joyous on the other side with everything that you've learned and what you now have to give.
Yeah, that's so good. I love how you honed in on that empowerment piece, because it does shift when you do the work and you become and continue to become throughout your life the healthiest version of you, the most authentic version of you that you were intended to be. And in other words that come to mind for me is freedom, choices, contentment. If that's empowerment, the ability to see your life from that lens. So thank you so much for that, explaining that and really breaking that down. I think that was so good, so wise. All right. We are down to the rapid fire. So we're going to ask each of you a couple of questions here. Talk to me first about, Lizzie, 5 activities that nourish you.
5 activities that nourish me: praying, journaling, laughing with my family, Deana, laughing with Deana, editing videos. Now, here's the thing. With everything in my life, the one thing I did not know I'd enjoy is editing videos and being creative with the videos. It's become my favorite thing to do. Sometimes I wish I had more time to do it. And maybe dancing in my kitchen.
I love that. So good. Okay. Deana, how about you?
I just want to give a little shout out to Lizzie first. When we talked about empowerment and growth and all the things we talked about, watching her, because she was a ways after me coming out of this relationship, and watching her growth in the last, 6 years, Lizzie, we've been friends. 6 years, just watching her just bloom and blossom and find her authentic self and her joy and her absolutely 100% no. And all of it has just been such a pleasure. She's such a beautiful soul. Anyway, just had to say that.
Oh, I love you.
I love that. Okay. That is women supporting women right there. I love that so much. Okay.
Just so proud of her. Anyway. Okay. So 5 activities that nourish me. Definitely friends, 100%, man, getting out with friends. Oh my goodness. Going out, having a drink with friends, even better. It's a blast. Exercise is something that really nourishes me. My love coming from healthcare for 3 decades is, holistic health and prevention and longevity and all those things. So health, prayer also nourishes me. Another way that I can empty out my emotions, and it really helps my anxiety when I feel like someone else is cares and is watching over me and has a reason for what I'm going through. Family time, travel for sure. And that's probably more than 5. Sorry.
That's okay. I love that you have multiples. That's so good. All right. And 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months. Deana, we'll have you go first.
Well, these 5 words come from the fact that Lizzie and I are really, really working to grow our platforms so that we can monetize and, actually make this a career, as well as a wonderful thing to help other people. So therefore, that's why these words are my words for right now. It would be successful, healthy, rested, content, and accomplished. And that's because, we've been at this for a couple of years, and we really have put in a whole lot of work, and we're really hoping to get to the other side to where that work can pay for itself, for instance. That would be really lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that feeling. Believe me. I know that feeling. All right. Lizzie, how about you?
All right. So we got grounded, being brave, free, joyful, and resign. My job. I want to be able to resign.
I love that so much.
Yeah,
I could be
your other kind of resigned. She means like,
yeah,
out of there.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Moving on. I love that so much. All right. Lizzie, tell people where they can find you, follow you. How can people access this? And Deana will let you jump into after Lizzie's.
Well, you can find us on survivingtoxicrelationships.org. We just rebranded ourselves. We were the Matadoras.
Yeah.
Podcast. So now, but we still have our email still thematadoras@gmail.com. We just find that right now that's just simple until we continue the change. We've also changed all of our podcast platform, YouTube, on surviving toxic relationships.
Okay.
With the Matadoras. And yeah, we're on Facebook. We have a private group, a public group. We also have, there was one more thing I was going to say. And our new channel, Empowered Midlife Reinvention and Wellness, because we are passionate. And part of the healing process of being in toxic relationships is you go through the phase where you leave the toxic relationship, you go through the healing portion of it. But the part that people don't really put power into or think it's important, it's the reinvention. And since Deana and I are in midlife, we were both divorced in midlife, but midlife also hits a lot of people who are just needing to reinvent themselves, whether from a loss of a spouse or empty nesters or career, they feel like they're at a dead end in their career. And it could just be that they just need to look for new hobbies, new communities. And that's our new passion.
I love that so much. Oh my gosh. Deana, anything to add to that?
Really, she said it all. It's just that, the surviving toxic relationships is where we've come from. And we're still, our hearts are still 1000% there with women that are also there. But then the reinvention is where we're at now. And now we just have this passion for, well, what about when they get out? And what about now they have all these things and all these challenges to face? Like, where can we help them there? Because we're still reinventing because, I left my career a couple years ago. She's going to leave her career. And this is what we're going to do. So the reinvention part is huge. And then, of course, you throw in menopause and you throw in midlife and you throw in, I'm starting over dating now in midlife. And, all the things that you don't think about for this stage of life. And so we're like, there's a lot to talk about. So we have 2 YouTube channels, and look us up on either one of those. Be great. We'd love to hear from any of you.
Oh, that's wonderful. All these resources, folks, are going to be on our website, embracinglayers.com, on the resources page. Go there to find it all, connect with it. Share this with your friends. Sometimes we don't know we know people in these situations, but I'm going to make an educated guess that most of you listening, if you're not someone, hopefully you're not someone in this situation, but you are, here are the resources, but you probably know somebody. So don't be shy with sharing these resources and letting people know that Deana and Lizzie are there to support, to help, to be there, to show up. And to, for that person that you're like, I'm pretty sure they are, but they don't maybe feel safe talking about it, just hand it off to them. It's like, gosh, I listened to this great thing today and it felt like it would be really supportive. And so I'm just sharing it with all my friends. Don't single them out or anything, but just be really, really generous with this information, because we just never know who needs it. And like I said, I guarantee you, just about all of us know somebody who needs this. And if you are that somebody, here are these resources, and we want you to have access to them, and we want you to feel supported through this. Any last thoughts that you'd like to leave with our listeners today, Deana? And then Lizzie will let you add in too.
I think my only last thoughts are just remember that no matter how bad things are, and no matter how confused and in pain you are, and possibly beaten down and possibly completely mistreated, you don't have to stay there. You don't. It might feel completely overwhelming and that the only answer is possibly to leave. And that just does not feel like anything you could do right now.
Yeah.
Just start by taking care of you. And like I had said, start growing yourself. I did this in the middle of my relationship. I finally gave up trying to change him, knowing that was not possible. He would never change. I finally got that epiphany, but I couldn't leave yet. I just didn't feel like I could. And so I started getting every book I could get my hands on. At that point, I couldn't even afford to go to a therapist, but I got, Codependent No More and Women Who Love Too Much and all these types of books that were empowering, but also very revealing about where I was and what I could do. And instead of buying books for him every 5 minutes, and can you please read this? Can you please look at this? Do you understand how you're hurting us? Do you understand? Can we go to therapy? I was like, done.
Yeah.
So please understand that in the midst of your pain and in the midst of your confusion, start working on you. It's going to empower you in ways you would never believe. And you're going to have so much growth in the middle. And it's going to give you peace where right now you probably can't find any peace.
Thank you. So good. Oh, so good. Lizzie, how about you?
That was really good, Deana. You got me speechless. I would say for me, I would encourage you to understand that you are not alone, no matter what type of trauma you're going through. You are deeply, deeply loved, and find your people when you're going through any type of trauma, hurt, pain, and do the work to heal, because I promise on the other side, you'll like who you become, and you like the fact that you're starting a whole new journey to try and do new things that you may have never done before.
Oh, ladies, that was so good. I'm not even going to add anything other than just say, listeners, there you go. Take that with you. Know these resources here. Thank you so much to both of you for joining me today. Thank you for how well you love each other and other people, and how you have chosen to take this and not let it dampen or steal your spirit, and allowed you to move forward in the ways that you are supporting so many, probably more than you even realize, that need these resources and support today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
All right. F.E.E.L podcast listeners, here are the resources. Share them. Let them know people they exist. Take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time here on the F.E.E.L podcast. Hello, and thank you so much for being with us today on this episode of the F.E.E.L podcast. If you would like more information on how you can apply these talking points that I share with our guests in each episode to your own life, really utilize this F.E.E.L framework, go to embracinglayers.com, fill out our contact form, and let's set up a free 30-minute consultation to talk about how you can start living your most authentic, organic, healthy, F.E.E.L-fueled life. Thanks again for being with us today. We'll be back to you soon with another episode here on the F.E.E.L podcast.